Today on the Coaching Life Podcast.
A coach has to play the player that gives the team the best chance to win.
Yeah.
And you do not, you don't lose your playing time due to an injury. You don't
I
lose
agree.
your starting position due to an injury.
Absolutely agree.
However, if after you return from your injury, you're not the best option, a coach has to play the player that gives the team the best chance to win.
One day, a couple of guys sat down for lunch and a conversation began. They talked about youth sports, how to be better coaches, how to be better parents, how to be better at developing young people. Not only for the games they play, but for life. That's what the coaching life is, a conversation. And we welcome you. Now, here are the hosts, Chris Stewart and Pat Martin.
Welcome back to the Coaching Life Podcast. This is Chris Stewart, and I am sitting alongside of good friend and coach Patrick Martin. How are you today, buddy?
Hey, Coach. Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's homecoming week here on Ohio University's campus. And
Who do we have this week?
Akron is the game, the football game. Yeah. There'll be lots of activity here right where we're sitting come Saturday morning. This is ground zero for that parade. We're right across from the main green here at the college gate. And
It's my favorite place on campus.
yeah. Oh, it's cool, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I've sat on the benches there at times and just worked via Wi-Fi.
Oh, I have too.
Yeah.
I've taken many lunches over there. Yeah.
It
It is, and a lot of students. We find a lot of students who give tour. We have students who give tours and to prospective high school students, and then when they come here, we'll of course talk to them and ask them to give their testimony of some of the reasons why they decided to come here. And you wouldn't believe the number of people who they had two schools that were equal in their mind in terms of academics and what they were being offered, and what tipped the scale for them was the beauty of the campus. And I grew up around here, so I'm like, really? Athens is really that? But people do. And when you get out and you do some of your own college visits with your own kids, you're like, well, yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah.
I've always been fond of it. My brother went to school here in the early '90s, I think. Yeah, and I come up to visit and show me around
Sibs
campus.
weekend?
Yeah. We went to the movie theater here around on Court Street. It's not. Is it still there?
Oh yeah.
Is it a movie theater? Okay.
Yep. They play a little. They play some of the same films that you might see at a, like a Movies 10 or something like that. A regular
New stuff,
commercial
new
theater.
releases.
But they also play some pretty obscure things. Like they like anytime somebody does a documentary on Jeffrey Dahmer or something like that, you might not see that in a regular movie theater, but it'll be on there.
Oh, okay. I got you.
there,
But I remember walking by, Campus Green here, College Green, and just thinking how cool it looked.
Yeah.
And I like it. Over the backside is the library.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I actually walked alongside of it today to get up here. I came from Baker to the student
Parked
center.
down there?
Yeah, I parked below and came up through. That's where my meetings were today. So
Okay. Well, you can stop in at Well Works on your way out, get you a workout before you leave, before you head home.
I'm thinking I'm gonna go to Taco John's. So
It's Tuesday. Isn't there like a Tuesday deal over
I don't know.
Taco
There used to
Tuesday?
be, didn't there?
Well, they have tacos every day there, but like 6-pack and a pound.
yeah, but you can't. Oh, the Olays. You can't get
a pound of Olay.
You can't get the Olays with the specials.
Let me ask you this: do you notice those potato Olays have some sort of? Do they have like a hint of sweetness in them?
Yeah, they got some kind of seasoning.
Yeah,
on it.
I've always tried to figure out what that is, what that seasoning is that
no
makes them a
clue.
little sweet.
There
It
we
makes
go.
you want to eat more, is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably high fructose corn syrup.
Probably something
they've
like
dumped
that.
on there. Yeah,
It makes you
it's bizarre.
greatly addicted to
I haven't
it.
had an Olay in a long time.
Is that
I haven't
right?
had any potato in a long time.
You're looking pretty good, Coach.
Well, I'm working hard, buddy. I was fat. I still am fat.
Me too.
I mean, it's just, you gotta. I feel a ton better. I really do. I've got more energy. Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah. And it's just, I used to be, work out 3 days a week. You bust it. You need that rest. And I just changed my whole mind. I'm just working out every day.
Yeah.
I'm just doing a little bit every day.
Yep.
A little, a lot instead of a lot, a little. That's kind of my mindset right now.
I think that's the direction I'm going to head as well.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. It's hard to keep a schedule when you're splitting those days. Something comes up and you're not able to hit it. But if you can go out and do half an hour, 45 minutes every day.
I'll tell you what has helped me. This is something that's really helped me. We installed a nice big TV downstairs in our workout area.
Yeah.
And so now, like, even if I'm watching a game, and I'd be like, you know what, I'm just gonna put the game on down there and sit, do an incline, set the bench at an incline and sit there and do a bunch of curls or do some incline press or or turn around and do some squats or something like that. Or even get on the elliptical or treadmill or something like that and crank the volume up and just watch there. I've done that in the last few weeks. And
so you can binge
it's helped.
and work out at the same time.
You can watch whatever you want, obviously.
I push mode the ball field this week. The infield.
That'll get you some steps in.
Not the outfield, but the infield and everything around it.
Infields are bigger than you think.
A lot bigger than people think.
Yeah, it takes longer to mow an infield than you think it will.
And a baseball field, I bet people would be surprised that a baseball field has more land area than a football field does.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Acreage?
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think about this. Like, I've priced turf before. So when we buy our turf for our baseball infield, the infield and
you've already priced it for the Eagles.
I have priced it. Yeah. For just the infield, like capping it off behind the infield, $281,000.
Wow.
Right? Not too bad. We can get a few donations to get that.
Yeah. I know you do. You get all kinds of donations.
No, I don't. You're the one sitting there with the bank account for your team. I'm starting to beg people just so I can get a few dollars to buy a few uniforms is what I want. But no, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about the turf. If you add the outfield to that,
it's like $750.
Oh, it's over $1 million.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like $1.3 million.
Wow.
To do the whole thing. Yeah. That's how much room there is out there in the outfield.
A lot of room.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, here's if we can make a point about this to parents and athletes as well. You know how many players we put on the outfield to cover that ground?
Yeah,
3. Yeah, we got 6 in the infield for the small area.
Yeah,
takes me 3 hours to mow our outfield. Well, not 3. It takes me 3 hours to mow the whole field when I do it right. So, but 45 minutes for the infield and the zero turn, and then the rest is that's how big that outfield is.
So you're saying that job
of playing outfield
is it's difficult, which makes it that more important.
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree with that, Coach.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today?
Last night I attend the Athletes in Action meetings here on campus, and I have a lot of football player friends, guys that come and see me throughout the week and sit and talk with them and everything. A lot of guys go to our church that are on the OU football team, and one of those guys, I'm going to have the privilege of doing the wedding for 2 of these players that are on the team. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And this one, I asked him last night. I asked Jake Netherton if he would come on our podcast. Jake's got a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
He graduated last year. He's actually Brock's age, but he had a 5th year, and he actually has a redshirt year as well. So he actually has another year of football, but he graduated last year, and he's still here at Ohio University doing his grad student, his graduate degree in physical therapy. Oh, he's actually teaching courses in that field down in Grover Center right now.
Oh, okay.
And that was what he told me. I said, Jake, can you give us 40 minutes sometime between 11 a.m. and 1 o'clock tomorrow? He's like, man. He goes, I have class from 11 to 1:30 tomorrow. And so, but I want to get Jake. We'll figure out a way to get him on, maybe during a break or a day when sometime when, or next semester when his classes are different or whatever, because he actually is back on the team, the Ohio University Bobcats team.
As a therapist?
Coach Alvin, no, as a player.
What?
As a player.
Oh,
Yep.
you were saying he does have another year left.
Oh yeah, yeah. He has more eligibility left, but he was done with football. He walked at senior night last year and everything. He's ready to move on, and
Yeah.
he's going to get married here in January. And
So when did he get back on the team?
2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah. You know why?
No.
Because Ohio University's running backs were all injured. Every scholarship running back was injured. Now I think they had a few walk-ons, right, listed as running back, and so Coach Albin approached Jake and said, "Hey, would you like to come back and play?" And Jake's like, "Let me think about that." Yes. So yeah, so here's the thing. 2 weeks ago at the home game against Fordham, Jake he'd gone through his days of acclimation, because you can't just put a uniform on and play. You got to do what everybody else does. You got to follow the rules.
Sure.
And so he had to go through those days of acclimation with pads and things like that. So many days without pads, so many days with pads. So he'd gone through that, and last 2 Saturdays ago was his first day back, and he got right in. I mean, in the second series of the game,
I didn't
they
realize
put him
he
in.
was playing.
Very first play, he ran the ball for 12 yards. I mean, he's a bowling ball, man. If any of you guys watch or listening, if you watch Ohio University football games like over the last few years, Jake got talked about all the time by the commentators because of his long blonde hair.
Yeah.
He had long curly blonde hair coming out the back of his helmet. And this year Keegan Wilburn wins that award. Keegan.
Also, Jake doesn't have long
Jake still does. He got it cut, but
Okay.
it's still long. Yeah.
I got you.
But anyway, I'll just say after that 12-yard run, he got kind of knocked over into the sidelines and landed on his shoulder. And he goes back out. Like he said, he felt discomfort as he was running back out, and they don't huddle, but he's back standing in the backfield looking over to get the play. And he said as he turned his head, he's like, something's not right. And I mean, he felt like I broke my collarbone. And so he went down on one knee, and everybody saw it, and they whistled injury timeout and went out there. And he ended up going to the hospital and getting an X-ray. He did not break it. He had an AC sprain. Good. Yeah. So he's actually going to come back next. He told me last night he's starting to, like, he's just been lifting lower body and everything, but he says he's starting to feel better, and he's going to probably be back in a couple weeks.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Jake's a good dude. I mean, it'd be a great conversation. I'd love to talk to Jake and let him tell more of his story. But
sure,
that's relevant, to something that you and I had talked about, maybe doing a podcast episode on, because there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of injuries happening today, right? In
high profile,
very high profile injuries. I mentioned the whole reason why Coach Albin asked Jake to come back was because they had so many. OU has a ton of injuries right now, and every football team deals with these.
Yes,
right,
definitely.
But perhaps the most notorious one right now, the one that everybody's been talking about the last couple of weeks, is Tua Tagovailoa, who obviously was having a career year so far.
Yes,
this
he
year.
was. He's looking really good.
In fact, in 3 games, Tua was having an arguably player of the year, type of year, right?
Yep.
Most valuable player type of year. He's small.
Yeah, he's not one of the bigger guys.
And when you watch him throw a deep pass, it's like he threw a balloon. His arm strength isn't really that great, is it?
No, not really. If he's going to throw it deep, he's got to put a lot into it.
Yeah. And that's actually what got him in trouble against the Bengals last Thursday.
Yeah.
Was trying to throw that deep ball a couple times. And Bengals defense been playing some ball now.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Browns haven't.
So and anyway, I'm not saying that to degrade Tua. I'm just saying that the dude gets things done for having the disadvantage of being small,
sure,
being light, and not having a great arm. Really,
he's good. He's an elite at other areas.
He's a very good athlete. Yeah. So people who listen to our podcast probably are very familiar with the fact that 2 weeks ago, Tua didn't get sacked. He actually threw a pass and got pushed down and fell on his back, and the back of his head slammed on the ground.
Yes.
When he got back up, his knees buckled. Yeah. He stumbled. And it wasn't just that he stumbled once. He stumbled and then put his hands up on his like over his ears on his head, like he kind of gestured that way, and then kind of shook his head a little bit, and then stumbled again, and he had to be helped off the field.
Right, by his lineman.
Yeah. And it was later, discussed that he went through all the concussion protocol and everything, and came back out and played the second half, and actually had a heck of a game, had a heck of a second half, led Miami to their third win.
Right.
And there was some controversy about that because the NFL Players Association decided that they were going to investigate all of the people who determined that it was okay for him to come back to play. They went through the concussion protocol with him. And obviously the assumption there is, well, they're investigating it because they don't believe that he did not have a concussion.
Yeah, I think the report was that he had a back injury.
That was what they reported. And that's even what Tua, he was pretty adamant about that, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was, that he had a previous back injury. And I did see a play earlier in that game where it was down on the goal line. He was trying to sneak it in, or he's trying to run it in, and he didn't make it, and he got kind of wrenched underneath the pile. And you could sort of see him kind of grabbing at his back, and they kind of went back to that play and said that's the play where he got the back injury.
Yeah. Well, I'm not denying that his back he doesn't have a back injury, or didn't have a back injury.
Oh, you don't believe all those doctors? Are you saying you don't believe that?
That he had a back injury?
You didn't believe the back injury story?
I just know that he didn't stumble around and grab his head because of his back.
Because of a back injury. I tend to be a skeptic about him not having a concussion also.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, we know now that a concussion, the symptoms may not appear immediately. Right. That's the confusing part to me. I mean, if you have a doctor over here saying, well, he went through concussion protocol, there's I believe there's
5 minutes after we saw him stumble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may have been that evening before he demonstrated the symptoms to a concussion. And I thought it was ridiculous then that he went back into the game. This is something that me and my boys argued about. They're like,
really?
No, Daddy had a back injury. They said he had a back injury. And me being that grumpy old man.
Yeah,
I don't care what they said. He had a concussion. You could see. Of course, they roll their eyes.
Right. Well, I just wonder. The play. I mean, any weird thing can happen. I mean, we've seen people sustain concussions on plays where we're like, man, how did that happen?
Yes.
And then we've seen guys take hits and we're like, how does he not have a concussion on that?
Yeah.
And so we get that. But man, that play in the Thursday night game, so 4 days later, he's back on the field. And that play against the Bengals where he was sacked, which, by the way, sacked because he was looking for the deep ball and just flat out held the ball way too long. I mean, someone with his athleticism, I don't know why you don't just tuck it and run. I mean, he could outrun all those linemen. But
back into the right.
Anyway, maybe the back wasn't hurting him. But that was a pretty brutal. He kind of got thrown down, right?
Very similar, but a little bit more with more force.
Yeah, thrown down.
His
and
head snapped.
Hit the side of his head. Yeah. And it was sickening to me.
It was.
To see, because the cameras panned in, the Amazon Prime cameras panned in there, and he was fencing. He was doing the fencing posture, which the fencing posture is when someone you see someone who has been knocked out, it happens because of traumatic brain injury.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Yeah,
you have no control over your function of your nerves and your muscles in your arms, and so your arms will bend, and you can't, and your fingers will sometimes go into weird looking formations, and both of his arms did that. Both of his hands did that.
Yeah, and we argued again about that too. Initially, my boys were saying his fingers broke.
He's landed on his fingers.
His fingers broke. Look at it. It's gone. And
when I saw it, I knew.
I did too. Yeah, I did too. It wasn't very long. Like, oh yeah, he's hurt.
Yeah,
that's something you see, and if you watch boxing or if you watch UFC a lot, you'll see that.
That one arm go,
where they're just kind of frozen in time a little bit there. I think part of the outrage now is because of that image.
Oh,
seeing
right.
two
That
on the
kept-
ground.
we kept
Went to
seeing
that.
it. Yeah.
I don't know that people realize that. I mean, that's a common thing for you know, if you like you said, if you have a brain injury, that's a common response to something like that.
And the reality, I mean, if you're playing a sport like boxing,
Yeah.
where a win is established by knocking someone out,
Right.
I mean, that's one of the ways to win, but it's one of the ways that everybody's looking for when they go to watch a boxing match. Let's just be honest, right?
So for me, I was not so much scared about what he looked like, but immediately I went to this is the second time in a week that he's had a significant injury to his head, in my opinion.
I actually
they're
thought
still arguing about that, but
was it. I mean, could the severity of it have been influenced by the fact that he already actually had a concussion?
I think definitely. I think definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can rule that out at all. Yeah.
So, I think you and I agree, and everybody on here agrees. We shouldn't be playing through that kind of an injury.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we should obviously pray for Tua and definitely seek the best for him, because something like that could very well end his career.
Yeah.
If it doesn't end his career and he does go ahead and play, there is no guarantee that it won't damage his life, his quality of life later. And we've seen a lot of evidence of that over the past 20 years or so from guys who did play through those things, because we didn't know as much. We didn't have the same kind of concussion science back in the 70s and 80s. And some of these stuff, like I looked up stories of guys that played through some injuries. It's just unreal.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think, I would like to think that everyone believes that would agree that he shouldn't be playing through that injury, but I'm not really for sure that that's true. I think there are people that still scoff at the idea that a kid gets taken off because he's shown some symptoms of a concussion, and I think that's. I'm not going to say those people are wrong, but if you're as a coach, if you're thinking holistically about who you're coaching, if you're coaching the player, sorry. That might be your mentality if you're coaching the player, right? Let's get him back on the field. Let's get her back on the court, whatever it is. But if you're coaching the person,
the person,
if you're coaching the person, then there's a bigger picture about things. And yes, the past we handled it in a certain way, in a different way, maybe, and maybe it was okay then to play through a concussion or certain injuries that we're going to talk about. However, we know more now about those injuries than what we did before. And so with that new information we have, it's almost negligence.
It really is.
To continue to approach it in a certain way. I wonder if Tua didn't tell the doctor, "Hey, I really want to go back in the game."
Oh, I bet he did. 100%. I mean, you and I would at that age, right? And in that situation, we see it all the time. I think that's where the NFL is coming down and saying we're going to make a rule and enforce it immediately that anyone who goes through the concussion protocol can't come back and play until a certain amount of time. I've seen rumors of that potentially happening here.
I see.
Basically taking that away from the player and even the doctor. Basically saying if it's deemed like if we see you stumble and you have to go in the tent and go through that protocol, you're just not going to play the rest of the day.
And maybe the doctor didn't see that, and maybe they don't put emphasis on that. But I find it hard to believe that after seeing, if the doctor would have seen that, that they could have put him back on the field. I just don't understand it.
That's the thing, I find it funny. I've seen people on the internet say, "Well, we all watch the same video. We all see the same thing."
Right.
It's like, well, are you saying that you're a doctor, that you know more than the doctors that saw him? It's like, well, I don't know that I have to be a doctor to see a video and say, "Yeah, something doesn't look right there."
Yeah. It makes your stomach uneasy to watch it.
It might be, if it is solely a back injury, that is the first time in my life in the history of back injuries that I've seen somebody behave that way
Yeah.
because of a back injury, and then never see them address their back the rest of the day.
Right.
Right? Like there was no other play the rest of that day that he would man, that it's like you never heard the announcer say, "Whoo, boy, that back looks like it's still bothering him here this second half," but he's just playing through it. Like it.
Yeah. And I would think if you did have a back injury bad enough that it would make you stumble, you should probably not be back in the
Right.
game anyway.
Yeah, you're talking paralysis potentially, right?
I guess I have a little bit of experience in this situation because my son Jake he broke his collarbone last season, and when he went down, I saw him land, and I thought, ugh. I just knew that's you watch quarterbacks get tackled on TV, you know that land right on your shoulder, fall.
So what happened to Jake Netherton's? He was that's the first thing he thought.
Yeah,
daggone it.
Yeah, but he got right back up. And from my position, I couldn't see his face. I couldn't see, I couldn't tell how much pain he was in. But he told the coach, "I'm okay. I think it hurt.
Yeah,
I'm okay though." But by the time he got back out on the field to take the snap, he couldn't move his arm.
Yeah,
so there for a minute, it was like, "Oh, okay, he's okay," but then, he wasn't.
Yeah.
However, there wasn't that with.
Well, I never did hear what was the treatment then? Like if it was determined that it was a back injury, did he get a cortisone shot at halftime? Like what? Nobody ever talked about what the treatment was for the back injury.
Right.
It's just a really bizarre thing.
I hate to cast shade on that, but NFL teams are notorious for just labeling certain injuries for a number of reasons. Tom Brady was on the
He's
injured
been on
list
the injured list every day of his career, hasn't he?
Tom Brady?
Well, the whole time he was in New England.
He was always on,
questionable list.
Wrist, knee, something. He was always hurt. And there was actually...
Well, the entire Bengals offense, except for Burrow, was on the questionable list that looked like this past week against the Dolphins. Yeah, it's like Mixon is going to be limited. T. Higgins, limited. Just everybody. Hurst, limited.
T. Higgins got a big ball.
These are the guys... Well, yeah, they all had a great... they didn't run great, but they ran Mixon enough to loosen things up, you know. So anyway, we've talked about Tua for a while, but people do play. We should probably help. Let's kind of just... Let's talk about the difference between pain and injury.
Yeah.
And not just that, there are some legit injuries that people have been known to play through, and you're like, daggone, that dude is tough. Right?
Sure.
Like you and I were talking about it before we came on. You mentioned Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
Right? Ronnie Lott, the legendary 49ers safety from the 80s, mid-80s.
Yeah.
He tackled...
This was Super Bowl. What was Super Bowl? Or is this the playoffs?
It was the playoffs because it was a Cowboys player, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think it was a Cowboys player.
Yeah.
Newsom. But anyway, the hit was so hard, Ronnie Lott would hit you, that it tore off part of his left pinky.
It was dangling.
It was dangling.
Mangled it up.
And it was possible, like the LA Times wrote that it was possible that skin and bone fragments were left on the field. Like that's the hyperbole they used, right? That's how hard it was. So Lott actually said, let's tape this thing up, right? He's like, well, I'm going to, I think they told him that he would have to have it amputated, or not have it amputated. He would have to have surgery to have it repaired, but he had to miss the rest of the season. And so he's like, no, I'm not missing the rest of the season. Tape this thing up. I'll play through it. Well, by the time he was done with the season, they couldn't do anything with it except amputate it.
Yep.
And if you see a picture, if you look up a picture of Ronnie Lott's finger, you'll see that he has half a pinky basically on one hand.
He's got one of those Super Bowl rings slid up on.
Right. But I think of guys, you and I, some of the most legendary, like right now, people who played injured. I immediately think of Jordan, who had the flu
game.
I think of Kobe with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
He's had sprained ankles, the Achilles tendon. He tore his Achilles heel. Remember that?
Right, yeah.
Just an absolute stud. Kurt Schilling in the bloody sock.
Yes, I forgot about that.
He had tendons. He had a botched operation or something, didn't he? Where a tendon was fused to
something like that. Yeah,
it's weird.
What about Trevor Bauer and his finger where he
Yes.
chopped it up in the drone. Thanks a lot,
Right.
Trevor.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and then like, my goodness, there have been some ACLs. Phillip Rivers played in the AFC Championship game, didn't he, with a torn ACL?
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not a Phillip Rivers fan. I always thought he's a whiner. Like
Yeah.
whenever you listen to those NFL films, watch those NFL films, I'm like, what? If I played against Phillip Rivers, I would do everything I could to knock that son of a gun out.
I think that was his goal. I think
It
he wanted-
seemed
I
like
wanted
it,
to frustrate
man.
the
Just a
defense.
whiner.
He'd
But
always
I tell you what.
whine and mess with the other guys.
The level of respect grew when I realized that dude's playing with a torn ACL right
Yeah.
now in the AFC Championship, right? And so it's like, well, I just said the level of respect grew.
Yeah.
Should it? Like, is that smart to play on that or not? Right?
Yeah, and I
Tiger
think-
Woods won the U.S. Open with a torn ACL.
Right.
And I think a broken ankle.
You know, I live in a world where, you know, I'm not coaching athletes at the level that we're talking about. And I think it's a problem because these guys are on TV. You know, these
Yes.
you know, athletes in major sports are shown on TV and these stories are written about them. So you get things like that. Oh, he's so tough. And, you know, but, you know, we said it earlier, like Ronnie Lott, you know, if this game that he mangled up his finger happened in his sophomore year of high school, you know, would he have been so quick to have that thing ripped off? I'm not for sure he would. I'm not questioning his toughness. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
you
He was
can't
the same
you can't
tough guy in
project
high
it-
school, but
Yeah, you can't project. It's not the same situation. It's
Yeah.
really not. You know, a high school player saying, "Go ahead and rip my pinky off," that may be crazy. That may be borderline crazy, as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
a guy in the NFL, you know, trying to win a world championship.
he has. So the guy in the NFL is at the peak of his career,
Right.
At his goal. I mean, he cannot win anything more.
Not only that, he's a grown adult. You know,
You're at the highest level possible. You're not going to. I mean, the Super Bowl is bigger than the high school state championship.
absolutely.
Even
Yeah.
though that might be your Super Bowl, you may never get to the Super Bowl.
Right.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I just think we got to be careful as parents, fans, you know, players to try to live up to those same
Yeah.
expectations when it comes to injuries, I think, you know, but that's the catch. And that's what I
Real
think we talked about.
injury.
Yeah. Real injury.
Yeah.
The difference between being injured or being hurt.
Something that could be a life-changing thing, because there is, you know, you and I deal with this every day as baseball coaches.
Yeah.
Because every day in the spring, our kids' arms are sore, right?
Yeah.
And something that
We didn't have a lot of sore arms this spring, I'll be honest with you, but it's typical.
I mean, you will always have it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing so many games in cold weather. You're playing so
True.
many. I mean,
Right.
high school baseball, college baseball, everybody's arm is sore all the time.
Yep.
And something that we have to discern is this soreness that you should play through, or should I rest you?
Right.
Are you this close to being injured, right? Because soreness isn't injury.
True.
It's pain isn't injury.
Yep.
I mean, it could just be soreness, right? That we deal with. I mean, I have kids skip the weight room. We have kids all the time. We have to tell them, like, when you have a kid come to the weight room for the first time and you talk to them and you say, "Hey, have you ever done much resistance exercise before?" And we've got a couple kids like that right now. And I remember last week I said, "Listen, buddy," I said, "I promise." I said, "Tomorrow you might be a little sore." But I said, "The day you're going to be the most sore is 2 days from now, which is our next time that we're going to be in here lifting together. Don't allow yourself to not come." I said, "You will work through it when you get back in the weight." We're doing mobility, warm up, activation, warm up.
Best way to-
By the time you're ready to lift again, you're not even going to feel sore. But in that morning when you go take a dump, that's the way to. It's hard to sit down on that toilet, buddy.
Yeah,
You are going to be sore. I promise you right now. Yeah, it's a thing that you just got to. We have to constantly tell them, "You're not hurt. That's pain. Yeah, you got to play through that."
Yep. Exactly.
But you just took a deep breath.
Well, I think you're putting a good framework around it of saying, you know, what can this do long term? You know, what is what does the pain mean long term? You know, Jeremiah has a broken wrist right now.
A broken wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sounds obvious, but the fact is he doesn't have a cast. The wrist is broken on his ulna, which is the outside bone. It's an immobile bone.
Did he get hit?
We don't know what happened to him.
Huh.
That's the weird thing.
Yeah, it's a weird break.
Typically, they say that it's from falling on your hand.
May have caught himself. Yeah.
They called it a compression fracture. But there's a growth plate right under the break. And, you know, the doctor actually said he could probably play. But what we'd be worried about is if he fell down onto his hand and had to catch himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, you know, we had to make the decision as his parents.
Well, yeah.
And me as a you know, a former player that probably wouldn't have thought twice about playing under you know, something like that, would have probably demanded to play. We had to make a decision of what was best, you know, for him going forward. And, you know, so we're holding him out until basketball just to, you know, just in case, just to avoid the possibility that he could hurt that any worse.
Yeah, and you're making that decision also based on the fact that he's 12?
Yes.
12 years old, right?
Right,
12 years old. I mean, you got a lot of athletics ahead of you, right? And
but here's the thing, Coach. It was actually broke for a number of weeks.
he had been playing through it.
He had been playing through it, you know. So
He's like, "What's the difference, Dad? I can."
What's the difference, right? And the difference is the knowledge that we have.
We know. Yes, boy, that's a great point.
Yeah.
The difference is the knowledge that we have now.
Yes, after the X-ray,
and that could be said for what we've, you know, how we opened the show about concussions, right? The different people are like, "What's the deal with today? All these guys, this concussion protocol bull crap, and going in the tent and all this." Well, the difference is the knowledge we have.
Yeah.
Of what it could do to you later in life, and guys that have committed suicide.
Yeah.
Serious things happening because of CTE.
Right.
And your point about setting out Jeremiah is huge, because I think today, you know, there isn't an athletic program, there isn't a high school athletic program that doesn't have an athletic trainer today.
Right.
What was your athletic trainer's name when you were playing in high school?
I think it was Amy Blake was our athletic
So
trainer.
you did have one?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the late 90s? Mid 90s?
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You
I don't
have
remember.
one?
No, I mean, there was probably a parent who was a doctor that hung around, you know, that sort of helped out. But I mean, that is a priority now for high schools.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
it's part of the game.
The people who bring the knowledge of, you know, these people are helping us to know whether or not this is something you can play through, should play through, are able to play through, or not.
Yeah, I think that's why you consider those trainers part of your staff.
Yes.
You know, I know that's one thing that
and
I
listen,
want to
buddy, make sure you put the word athletic in front of them too, because they get offended when you don't say athletic trainer.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Just a little tip, little pro tip. Yeah. Because they are not personal trainers; they're athletic trainers.
Well, I call them coaches.
That's even better. If they want to be called coach,
That's
I guess.
true.
Yeah.
Ours didn't tell me one way or the other. Although I will tell you this, I actually called him in my text that I told him, you know, good luck because our athletic trainer from last baseball season has moved on. He's going to be very, very, very much missed. But I sent him a text and told him, you know, good luck. But I went back and looked at that text a couple days later, and I realized I said athletic director, not trainer. You know, it's not the first time.
Do you know something I don't? I got a different job.
But no, we have a pretty good relationship, so I'm sure he didn't hold it against me. But I think they're part of your staff, and you know, being able to deal with injuries the right way is part of the game now. It's part of coaching. It's part of playing. And you got, you know, there's this whole realm of injuries, not just, you know, preventing it from getting worse or anything like that, but also knowing how to deal with an injury. Yeah, that's going to keep you out for, you know, an extended period of time. And there's a young lady at Meg's that she's having a foot issue. It's kind of up in the air when she's going to be able to come back and play, volleyball player, and you know, I kind of compared that to the situation she's in, is the situation she's always been in her whole life, of every day that, you know, you've played softball or volleyball, you've committed to getting better, right? That's what we do as athletes. So dealing with that is very much the same thing that we do. It's just a different type of getting better. Now you're talking about your physical health as opposed to a skill, but you're still doing whatever it takes to get better. I mentioned that just to say injuries are a part of the game.
Right.
We have to.
It's a part we don't like.
Yeah, well, sure.
It's an adverse part of the game.
And when you think about it from an X's and O's or a competitive perspective, it's almost like an error, or, a missed free throw.
You
or something
feel like
that.
it is.
Oh, yeah, the players do for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And maybe even the coaches too, because it's going to hurt your team. But at the same time, it's something, it's going to happen, and you got to do what's best.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, from a coaching standpoint, it's going to happen. And so from a development standpoint, in developing other players and helping people to understand how vital it is that they continue to work as hard. If you're not a starter today, practice as though you are, because tomorrow you might be.
Yeah, true.
You might be because you beat the other guy out, or you might be because the other guy in front of you got hurt, and now you're the man.
Boy, that's football in a nutshell.
It is the next man up mentality. Absolutely right. And so that's the burden and the responsibility then is not just on the player, but it's also on the coach to realize we have to plan for injury. I don't like planning that way, but I got to plan for injury because it's gonna happen. Got to plan for the fact that at some point my shortstop, who I don't want to have to take off the field any day, he might have to pitch, and if he throws 90 pitches today, probably not going to play him at shortstop tomorrow, right? Because I got to have a plan for that kind of thing,
right?
And those are. And that's an example of, well, it's not because he injured himself though in 90 pitches, but it's because if I put him back out there,
which is something
with that
we would have done,
stretched out tendon, like those stretched out tendons and and those sore muscles that aren't strong today as they are because they're in recovery right now, I will risk injuring him.
Absolutely,
and that it will loosen up even more, and it could come out of socket. You could tear something, right? And so that's where, that's really where your athletic trainer can really be a beneficial. I told our guys last year, we had a lady named Maeve who was phenomenal with us at Eastern. And I said, listen, I want you guys to know, as much as we trust one another on this coaching staff to be able to coach you up in how to hit, how to pitch, how to field a ground ball, we trust her with your health.
Yeah.
She knows more about your health than we do.
Yes.
And so what she says goes.
Yeah, and what a load off of your shoulders to have someone like that you can count on.
Yeah.
That's why I said
that's a huge burden off your shoulders.
Coach. Yeah. So you can just go to that, the athletic trainer for us was Nate Chapman. Had a great
I heard a lot of great
kids.
things about him.
Yeah, kids loved him. Just really, really great guy. But as a coach, I knew these athletic trainers know that the coach wants the kid to play.
Yes, they do.
They got to make the
and we'll even advocate for that. I'll admit. I'll be like, hey, whatever we can do, get him back out there.
Right.
Let's get it
But
done.
it's good to know when you look at that trainer, the athletic trainer, that they're going to tell you the truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's the responsibility is off of you to make that decision. It's a great thing, but we're not void of all the responsibility. And like you said, great example on the pitching, the pitch count situation of not sending that guy back out there. That's something we would have done 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. Something I did.
Might even have pitched again, right? The same.
Right.
So
catch the next game.
And it's not. In that regard, maybe that's a little bit easier to understand. That's not a toughness thing,
It really isn't. People will argue with you about that. You would have old school guys arguing with you.
I think that too. I think there's still exists, and
it does. Well,
20 years ago, I might have agreed.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you,
but
absolutely,
I don't think I agree. Yeah. Actually, I know I don't.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I don't think the player is 100% to play the position in that situation. You know what I mean? So you're putting a player in a situation where they're not prepared to succeed. And I think that's bad coaching. You know that they're tired. You know that their arm might be sore. You know that they're not going to. It could be mentally impacting them, or or whatnot. I think the excuse is, well, he's our best player in that spot. Maybe when he's 100% or when she's 100%.
Right.
But not now.
You got to consider the fact that he or she's not 100% today.
And that problem is compounded when you don't do what you said to do and prepare.
Yeah.
Prepare for those situations. Not just physically, not just with repetition, but mentally as well. Make sure your team knows, hey, we're not going to have this person in this spot today, but that's okay. We can still go out and succeed. We can still win, and I think that's important too.
That's very important from a team aspect.
Yeah, because kids respond differently when if a person's missing in the lineup, it's like, oh shoot, we're hurt.
You've seen teams step up more when the star player goes down hurt because they realize, okay, we have to pull a greater load now. And so we're going to give a little more. It's like they realize you guys actually had more in you.
Yeah. I think there's probably a degree of mental toughness in that. Mm-hmm. When you see teams do that, they have a degree of mental toughness about them to be able to accept the situation and just go after it and understand this is what we got to do.
Yeah. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Because I've had a few conversations like this with people. A lot of people experience this, whether you're a parent of a child who's experiencing it or if you're a player and you've experienced it. There are two different people to think about their perspective in this. Okay, you've got a guy who's a starter who gets injured, and he's legitimately injured. He's got a road to recovery. That road might be the rest of this year. And then they come back next year, and those two same guys are on the team. Or it might be 3 or 4 weeks, but the season's 8 weeks left. And so in the middle of the season, I come back after being out for injury for 3 or 4 weeks. During the time that starter has been out, so we got to think about this as a coach as well. You've had a player inserted in that position, in that role, who has done a solid job.
Yeah,
like they've graded well in their position. They've done well. Your player, who may be more talented, that was injured. There's a reason why you had him starting. You believed he was the better option.
Right.
He's now fully 100% ready to go, and you got a decision to make.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the age-old, right? Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady story, right? The age. I mean, and. What, as a coach, what are you doing in that, like, what's going through your mind to determine who plays tomorrow?
Yeah. I think in that situation, you have to answer the question, what's best for the team?
Always.
Yeah. And you don't lose your playing time due to an injury.
I agree.
Your starting position due to an
absolutely
injury.
Agree.
However, if after you return from your injury, you're not the best option, you've lost your, you have to, a coach has to play the player that gives the team the best chance to win.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's really hard. That's probably a it's probably a discussion with the athletic director and principal and coach and parents. Probably you're probably going down the road.
You will inevitably have. I mean, that situation is difficult for a coach regardless of how it goes.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you believe that the best option for your team to win is to reinsert the original starter who was injured, and pull the guy that's been doing a great job for you as a backup, you're going to have a meeting with that parent and the athletic director and the principal and the superintendent and whoever else. That's sort of a no-win situation for a coach. It's a tough situation for a coach. But I think I fully agree with the way that you broke it down. That's how that decision has to be made. And we've seen that play out in front of us in professional sports a lot, both ways. I mentioned Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. Right. Drew went down and Brady came in, and all of a sudden the Patriots are like, this might be our guy.
Yeah,
and then Bledsoe goes to the Cowboys after that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that, Brady was the better player.
You think?
So, even then though.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
even then,
yeah,
you know, being as young as what he was.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Belichick saw that and he made the decision.
He
off
made
that.
the right decision on that. Yeah. And
It wasn't just because the Patriots were winning by getting by. It was this guy has what it takes. You know.
Yeah.
And that's
your
tough.
Browns last year had the opportunity to continue to play. Was it not Kirk Cousins? Who was the backup for the Browns last year?
Kirk Cousins.
It was
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Baker came back, even though he was still injured, people might argue, right?
Oh, he was injured.
I mean, there was no. I mean, it wasn't really he was recovered. They believed that Baker gave him the best chance to win. I may have disagreed with that.
Yeah, me
after watching
too.
them play with Cousins.
I'd really like to I'd like to have a film session with Coach Stefanski one day and just ask him some questions. I don't really buy into questioning coaches all that much on
Sure.
in-game decisions and things like that. I think, you know, they have a lot more information than we do. to
Oh
make
yeah,
those
I mean,
decisions.
I just said, boy, I don't know why they'd put Baker in instead of Cousins, but who am I? Who am I to say?
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly.
honestly.
I mean, these guys study film 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Dallas Cowboys are going to have that situation in front of them here in a couple
They
weeks.
are.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because old Cooper Rush is getting her done.
Yeah, he is.
Cooper Rush is
What's
getting it
what's
done.
your gut there?
You got to play Dak. I mean, just because Dak was 0-2 and Cooper Rush is 2-2 or
Yes.
2-0,
Yeah.
right? You don't. Well, for one, in professional sports, you got a financial investment in Dak
That's true.
Prescott.
That's true.
You can see it every time you see Jerry Jones talk in a press conference. You can see it going through his mind.
Oh, yeah,
Can't
you can.
You really can.
'Cause he likes that
wears
splash move.
everything on his sleeve, man. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It's that's a tough situation all the way around.
Yeah, it's a
and
tough
I
situation.
sympathize with the child, the player, the parents who filled in during that time that the starter was injured.
Really, both ways.
And
I mean,
now-
whoever ends up on the short end.
Yes.
You know, so to speak.
Yeah, because the starter would never have lost his spot, most likely,
Right.
had he not been injured.
Right.
And so even in that situation, it wasn't injury that caused him to lose his spot. It's just the fact that guy that filled in for you got better.
Yeah.
He made our team better, and now you're not the best option for us to win.
Right.
And so, yeah, the injury did have something to do with it, but it wasn't that you lost your spot because you were injured. And it's a hard thing to explain.
Sure.
Because in a way, that is what caused it, but it's not what caused it.
Right. Well, yeah, it's true. I think, you know, you could say that this individual that's gotten better could have done the same thing through practice in their opportunities that they received, the limited during games, and proven that, you know, they had something there that, you know, maybe they had the hot hand or whatever, and maybe that's a situation where, you know, a player that doesn't start earns a starting role. You know, that could play out over the course of a few weeks. It kind of they just got a better opportunity because of that injury.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
You know who else experienced that?
Who's that?
Joe Burrow
That's right. That's true.
at Ohio State. Joe was the second string quarterback under JT Barrett.
And he was.
People don't realize this. Everybody in the world says, "Oh, he lost a spot to." He was the third string quarterback. He got beat out by Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
Joe broke his thumb.
Yeah.
He had a broken thumb, and that's why Haskins went into play.
Yep.
In the Michigan game. Well, if you beat Michigan, and they didn't just beat Michigan with Haskins, they dominated Michigan. I mean, he
True.
had the game of his life.
Yep.
Well, God rest his soul. I mean, he's not.
Right,
I mean,
right.
he literally did have probably the game of his life that game.
Yeah.
And so from that point, Urban had a decision to make the next year. Okay, Joe's healthy now. Dwayne's healthy. I mean, Dwayne beat Michigan. I got a fan base that's going to say, "What the heck are you doing?" If I put Joe back up as my starting quarterback, when
They had only said it for a couple weeks.
when I've got one that annihilated Dwayne Haskins, annihilated Michigan, and so I think Joe obviously knew that was coming,
Yeah.
and got out, and of course the rest of that is history.
Yeah. Bad decision, not the worst that he's made, though. Coach Meyer.
From Meyer, yeah, definitely not the worst.
I've always said that I thought Joe was a better quarterback than Haskins, Dwayne Haskins.
I felt like if he had the option,
better.
I felt like if he had the opportunity to play in front of JT Barrett, he would have done some incredible things in 3 years in that system.
Yep.
I mean, look what he did in 2.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a heck of a first year at LSU.
Yeah.
The second year, he had the greatest season of any college football quarterback ever. And heard old Colin Cowherd tell him that on his little show that he does, where he calls Joe like every week, and they
do they
talk for like 20 minutes?
Oh, I didn't know they do that.
Yeah.
I don't watch Cowherd very much.
I hadn't listened to Cowherd at all. I saw a link that everybody around here posts links with Joe, and so I was like, every now and then I'll click on them and everything. It was when they were 0-2 and they were going into the game against who was their first win? The Jets. And
no, that's who they beat last week. No,
it was Thursday night against the Dolphins was their second win.
That's right.
So,
you're right.
Yeah.
Jets.
Yeah. But yeah, I think before, I mean, we're really getting probably where we need to wind it down, but we probably should say something about the kinds of things that you can play through versus the kinds
let's do that.
Like having some discernment. And this isn't just you and me. Like I looked up a couple of experts' opinions on this.
Yeah.
So this is from an orthopedic specialist from in sports medicine from Orlando, Florida. His name is Dr. George Eldari. And he talks about how you've got muscle soreness, you've got sprains, you've got tears and breaks and things like that. He's like, sometimes you see some athletes will play through those and some athletes won't. Mm-hmm. And how do you determine the extent of an injury per athlete? Because some athletes, it may vary based on the athlete.
Sure.
You may have somebody play through something that you may not have another person play through.
Yeah, and a tear isn't a tear isn't a tear.
Exactly.
They're all different.
They are very different, yeah. And so he gives some bullet points about how to help make those kinds of decisions.
Oh, okay, good.
And
deal.
he says, obviously the most common symptom associated with injury is pain, right? And so we have to have the ability to distinguish between pain and soreness. And so he says pain can be acute to chronic discomfort, and it can feel different ways. Like you have stabbing pain, or you got radiating pain, or you got throbbing pain, right? And so you'll have the experts asking, okay, describe your pain. Mm-hmm. Is it is it stabbing? Is it or does it feel more dull? Like because a soreness is more of a dull ache that sort of shows up, after a lot of repetitive movement, like like sore arm, right?
Yeah.
It's not a stabbing pain necessarily, but it's just man, I'm just sore.
Ache.
Sore
I
joints,
like
sore muscles. Yeah, it's an aching, right? And it may linger for 24, 48 hours,
sure,
or whatever. And he says, listen, just be honest with you. With soreness, a person should be able to play safely through that.
Sure.
Obviously some stretching, things like that, but then if it becomes more of a debilitating pain, then we're talking about something different here. But he says, here are things that you need to look for to assess whether or not it's safe to keep playing. One, the type of injury, right? From a sprain to a strain to a tear or to a break, and that's where you're going to need somebody to help you to determine that. The level of pain, of course, is it something you can tolerate and get back out there, or is it just intolerable? And again, that's going to vary depending on the person.
Sure.
And then I think one of the greatest ones is range of motion, right? Your ability to be able to perform. I mean, is it limited? Is it none? Like I have no range of motion here. Well, you probably shouldn't put you back out there then.
Right. Not only for health purposes, but for performance purposes.
Yeah, there it is. That same thing again, right? And then he spends the rest of the article basically talking about head injury and, anytime you're experiencing, blurry vision, memory loss, brain fog, headache, nausea, things like that. It's just no.
Yeah,
sure.
It
does not matter. It doesn't matter who the person is there. Tough, not tough. Everyone needs to sit in that.
Yeah,
And so now we're right back where we started today.
Well, as we always say, we have conversations on this podcast, and it's, our goal is to bring awareness to certain things, if anything.
Yeah.
And I think, the point that I would like to make today is, it's something, these injuries and how to deal with them as players and coaches and parents is something that we have to spend a little bit of time learning about, and coming up with a plan for preparing, like you said. I think that was a good word, just so that we know, the same way, that we're gonna run a drill in our practices. We're gonna go over a process to evaluate an injury on one of our players to decide, whether they can play or they can't play.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we have to do if we're in the business of, as we mentioned, coaching the person.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing. We're putting the person first.
Well, because the last thing we want to do, even as a player, even as a coach of a player, is jeopardize their career, however long that career might be.
Yes.
Their 12U career, their high school career, their college or professional career. We don't want to jeopardize that.
Right.
We don't want to
Absolutely.
jeopardize their quality of life, of course.
Sure.
There are a lot of things bigger than sports here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree, Coach.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not an exciting topic to talk about, but it's a necessary one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think parents out there wonder about these things. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, it might. Yeah, I could be wrong. I mean, people might be like, "Wow, I really appreciate
And
that."
as a coach, it's easy to kind of ignore.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you think about.
Well, let me
every
ask
day.
you this. There's a reason why the National Federation of High School Sports makes coaches go through
CPR
hours and
first thing,
hours and hours of training,
Sure.
of online training, whether you're being paid for the job or not. You got to pay to take some of these classes about sports medicine and injury and injury prevention and responding to certain injuries and things like that, and knowing what to do from something as simple as CPR. I mean not simple, but something as as general as CPR versus something specific to your sport. And I'll admit, there have been times when I've sat at the computer and turned that video on and did some other things while it was going on. I mean, taking it lightly instead of really saying, okay, I could learn something here and become a better coach by recognizing the value of this.
Yeah, well, I think there's a level of competency too, because you and I, we're not health professionals, so we're only going to be able to do so much at a certain point, and maybe that's part of the governing body's responsibility too, in all this, is making sure that material that we have it does kind of draw us in a little bit and helps us to engage a little bit more. I know that the concussion video has been the same now for a number of years, and also Lindsay's Law, the cardiac arrest. We hoard all the parents into the gymnasium to watch that Lindsay's Law to make sure everyone watches it. And
oh wow, you have a big meeting to do it?
Yes, we do.
Oh man.
Yep. Yeah, we do.
The two schools I've worked at, basically they send everybody the link and say you're
sign
responsible for watching this and signing it. Yeah.
So everyone comes in and you sign the paper.
Brutal.
And then everyone watches that video
in a hot gym.
Yeah, but I
get it. Yeah,
we have our kind of like opening team meetings.
Oh yeah,
of every season. So it's
just
kind
go
of
ahead and
everyone's in the same.
Knock it all out at once.
Yeah, so that way we can be sure, right away, almost everyone's
represented.
Yeah, but it's the same video over and over again.
Sure,
so it's like,
sure. Yeah, yeah. The one video is funny. I don't know if it's just a baseball specific video or not, but like the lady that's narrating it at the beginning, the volume is really loud on hers.
Yeah.
And then when it's like an official, it's the officials meeting, because when the umpire comes on and talks, he's the umpire in charge in the state of Ohio or something like that, and he talks about all the rule changes, things like that. I don't know if he's like sitting back this far from the microphone or what, but I'm like, man, I gotta crank this thing up, and I cranked it all the way up, and I'm doing some other things because it's like an hour-long video, and then all of a sudden his part was done, and you heard her come back on, and blew, it's like, oh, thank you very much for the. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was it destroyed my ears, but. We need to take this stuff a lot more seriously than maybe we do.
Part of the game,
part
of coaching. We need to prepare for it, and we need to be able to. We need to be ready to face those challenges in all facets.
Well, yeah, you never know. They may need some water.
They may need water. Players, coaches, parents.
Yeah.
And you know what? A little bit fans too.
Oh yeah, there's pressure there. Yeah. There's a reason why people, play through injuries, and that's because there's a lot of it's because of perception.
Yeah.
Like there's this warrior mentality and peer pressure. Like come on, suck it up.
Yeah.
Coach fan pressure.
It's there.
Yep, it is
something we need to evaluate for sure.
Definitely. Cool.
Coach, good seeing you.
Good to see you.
See you next week.
All right.